All righty, good morning, and thanks for joining us for this special streaming edition here on ABC 24 Plus, to be specific. I'm Kevin McNamara.
And I'm Yvonne Cooper. This morning we are really talking about that audit. We have waited 9 months for this forensic audit to be complete for MSCS. That $6 million probe, those results will be announced in just a few moments.
Yes, we're going to take you live now to a press conference that's being put on in Nashville, the state capitol, where they're about to get started. You can see, we'll take you there right now.
Today, as you can see on stage, we have Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, House Speaker Cameron Sexton, and other leaders in the legislature. Notably for you all here, we also have Folashade Abiola Banjak from our outside auditing firm, as well as Myrtle Shamra. They're from CliftonLarsonAllen, or CLA, as you may hear us refer to them. We are here today to talk about the interim forensic audit of the Memphis-Shelby County school system, which was requested by the General Assembly and funded by the General Assembly last year. After the legislature did that, the Comptroller's Office issued an extensive RFQ process, and we ended up contracting after a procurement with CliftonLarsonAllen, or CLA. CLA began its work in August of 2025. It's important to note that this audit has 3 parts. The forensic audit specifically covers fiscal years 2022 through 2024. There's an internal controls assessment, which involved review of internal controls, and an IT and cybersecurity section that evaluated risks that currently exist. It is important to note that today's report is an interim report. A final report will be available later this year, but specifically to the forensic audit section, it is only about 25% complete. There's 75% more work to do on the forensic part. So after that preamble, let me say that it is unfortunate, but it is not at all surprising that the work by CLA verified that there are widespread operational failures within the Memphis-Shelby County schools. The failures evaluated so far include more than $1.1 million in waste and abuse, much of it related to contract spending within the school system. Another $1.7 million in spending that is not in compliance with district policies and procedures. It is notable in their work that CLA was not able to locate at least 40% of the I-9 verification forms it tested in regard to personnel in the school system. CLA noted, and you'll see in the audit there are photos of this, they noted that the room containing these files, along with other personally identifiable information, is secured by a curtain instead of a door. In all, the report that you will see today includes 44 deficiencies related to internal controls, 51 deficiencies related to IT systems and cybersecurity, and so far in the 25% complete forensic audit, there are 79 observations. This has, very unfortunately, but perhaps again not surprisingly, been a very challenging engagement. The forensic audit has involved a huge amount of data, over 200 in-person interviews, more than 40 CLA staff working at a time. They have collected a huge amount of data, and auditors have faced delays from the Memphis-Shelby County school systems providing requested information. The auditors have dealt with dysfunctional record keeping with outdated IT systems and obvious fiscal mismanagement. They have dealt with an obvious disregard for policies and procedures within the district. The challenges they have faced have made this work harder, but they have also verified why this audit was necessary. Again, let me say that this is an interim report. It is imperative, and we are calling on them today, it is imperative that CLA have the full cooperation of the Memphis-Shelby County school systems for them to be able to complete this audit. Here is the bottom line, and for me, what the biggest takeaway is from this report. It is clear, and again, no surprise, that there is an absolute culture of apathy and carelessness within the Memphis-Shelby County school systems. There is, at no level, an expectation that things are done right. The Board of Education, the leadership in the school system, does not now and has not ever exhibited an expectation that things are done right. There is a major lack of accountability across the Memphis-Shelby County school systems. Large portions of the forensic audit is not even done yet, but in my opinion as comptroller, this is the worst management of any organization I have seen in my career. I would say, in fact, that it is unprecedented for an organization of this scope and size. I have with me in the room right over here Brian Birkland, who is now Director of Local Government Audit in the Comptroller's Office. Brian, you've been here 45 years, and you have said to me, this is the worst you have seen in your career. This audit outlines a school system that is extremely dysfunctional. Let me give you one example of a contract we found, or CLA found. In the Memphis-Shelby County school systems, they hired a consultant, a mentor principal, to provide mentoring in the school system. We had a situation where they invoiced for 32 days of work in December. Well, you might say, well, December only has 31 days. But, in fact, there are only 13 school days in December because of Christmas break and things like that. Yet they're billing and being compensated for 32 days of work. We have other instances where they're finding many contracts valued at $99,000. It perhaps is just a coincidence that the bid limit is $100,000. We have a lot of curious things going on. 1 out of every 10 students in Tennessee are educated in the Memphis-Shelby County school system. They have an abysmal educational attainment rate. If things are so bad in the business and operational side of the school system, it is easy to understand how that extrapolates to the all-important educational side of the office. In order to expand on this more, I'll ask Folashade Abiola Banjak, who is with CLA, to come down and share more with you.
Good morning. My name is Fola Abiola Banjak, and I lead the Forensics, Litigation, and Investigations practice here at CLA. I'm joined with my colleague, Myrtle Sharma, who is the Managing Principal of the Tennessee office. Today, CliftonLarsonAllen, CLA, submitted an interim report prepared at the request of the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasurer. We reviewed the financial practices, governance, and operations of Memphis-Shelby County Schools. The interim report reflects work conducted pursuant to the engagement authorized by the Comptroller and outlined in the engagement letter dated July 28, 2025, as subsequently expanded. The procedures performed to date are part of an ongoing forensic audit designed to evaluate risk, identify potential irregularities, and assess governance, compliance, and financial practices for fiscal years 2022 and through 2024, as well as to evaluate the district's current internal controls environment. As part of this work, CLA has completed the internal controls assessment and the IT cybersecurity risk assessment. These two assessments identified multiple control weaknesses and deficiencies. CLA's forensic audit work is ongoing, as stated by the Comptroller, and includes transactional testing, document review, interviews, and analytical procedures focused on identifying potential fraud, waste, abuse, noncompliance, and other irregularities. The preliminary results from this report have identified potentially more than $1.1 million in waste or abuse attributable to weaknesses in management, oversight, and internal controls. In addition, CLA identified more than $1.7 million in transactions processed that are potentially in violation of district policies and procedures. These represent internal control and documentation deficiencies. It's important to note that our findings, our interim findings, have also observed that with the high level of leadership and staff turnover, coupled with the lack of documented policies and procedures and the erosion of institutional knowledge, they've resulted in a systemic challenge with record keeping and documentation, a challenge that we've faced throughout this engagement. Additionally, CLA conducted a preliminary investigation related to the Whitehaven STEM building matter. That work identified the absence of a formal agreement with the district related to approximately $885,000 of remaining funds in the Whitehaven STEM building account held by School Seed. In sum, CLA will continue its work from a forensic audit perspective. As the comptroller stated earlier, we are only 25% done from the contracts testing, and we have approximately 75% to go. And with that 25% completed, we've identified $1.1 million in contracts that have been classified as waste or abuse. This interim report is intended to inform stakeholders of observations to date and does not represent final conclusions. The final conclusions will be provided in the coming months. In sum, we ask that all questions really are answered in the 322-page report that we've presented. That includes all three volumes, the internal controls volume, the digital assessment, as well as the interim forensic audit. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Randy McNally, Speaker of the Senate and Lieutenant Governor. I just want to say this is one of the worst audit reports that I've seen in my almost 50 years in state government. I think it demonstrates that from the school board to the school management that there's lots of problems, and it's like people don't care about any rules or any accounting procedures that should be done. And it's just a terrible thing that we see. There's, in some instances, some of the companies are refusing to give us data or refusing to give the auditors data, and that certainly is a big red flag to me. And I think if they have nothing to hide, they'd be willing to cooperate. But thank you, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And look, I think it's important to note, just to emphasize that only 25% of the forensic audit is complete. There's still 75% to go, but there's enough there to be highly concerned with what's been going on, especially when you're looking at the contracts. You know, for example, nearly $2 million in disbursements, wire transfers, bank statements, and payroll and travel stipends have no record keeping at all, or oversight. It's also 6% of the contracted vendors did not have a street address, only PO boxes. That's important to evaluate. And multiple contracts had no oversight, no record of purchase orders, unsupported changes for meals and travel expenses, billing for unrealistic workdays, double payments for vacation. Several executive coaching contracts, as was mentioned here, are very concerning as what those look like. And look, I think as you look at this, there's an article, I think last year, where there was a individual who had a contract with Shelby County Schools, and somehow they figured out that they were supposed to have collected tens of thousands of dollars for something they were supposed to provide. But the problem is they never asked for it. They never were part of it. Somehow they got caught up in the process. That money went somewhere else. They started investigating it. They had never received the money. It went somewhere else. And the question is, how did that happen? I think it's been laid out how that happened. It was due to lack of internal controls, lack of internal knowledge. Could be fraud, could be waste, could be abuse. But I think what we have heard for years is how much has been going on through their contracts. And with this only being 25% done, there's still a lot more to go, but it's very concerning where we're at. I think everybody on this stage is wanting to have Memphis economy to be the biggest economy in our state and take on to the levels of what Davidson County has. I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor and the leader and the leader on our side and members and the senators for helping us decrease crime in Memphis. That was a team effort here. This is a team effort here to have a better understanding of this, but it's also a team effort when you're looking at the school system. There should not be a child that is leaving that school that's not proficient in reading and math. And when you have this kind of mismanagement in the financial side of it, we understand now why there's so mismanagement on the expectations of what's being produced from those classrooms. And so we're gonna do our part. We're gonna do our best to right the ship. And we hope that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join us in this as we try to bring some order and ability back to that process. And so, look, it's not a great day for the school system, but we got more to go. And I'll just say, look, 75% still out there. There's a lot to go, and this only represents 3 years. The forensic audit is only going to represent 3 years, but what has been going on, this has not been going on for just 3 years. This has been going on for decades. And so you can make that determination of what that total value is, but this did not start in 2022. This started a long time ago. We're not blaming one individual, but it's a systematic failure in the process, and that's kind of where we're at. And then I'll turn it over to Chairman Mark White.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Sexton, very much. My name is Mark White, and I chair the House Education Committee. I have been in the General Assembly now for 17 years. For the last 12 of those years, I've been fortunate enough to chair the Education Committee in the House chamber. And we in the House and the Senate Education Committee have worked to increase academic standards and accountability in our state's K through 12 schools. We have had much accomplishment. Our nation's report card shows that over the past 10 to 15 years, we have moved Tennessee from 45th, 46th, and 47th among the 50 states in the nation in reading and math proficient. We have now moved the needle down to we're now in the mid-20s of 50 states. So the state has been moving forward. However, Memphis, which is one of the districts that I do represent, the MSCS district has not been moving the needle consistently, and they have stayed around the 25th percentile in reading. And this hurts the city. This hurts the growth. So we have been asking our question, Senator Taylor and I and the leadership behind me, what is the systemic and the root causes of this? Why are we not moving the needle year after year, decade after decade? So I want to thank the leadership behind me, Governor Lee also, for supporting this. And so what we are now in the process of doing, Senator Taylor and I, once this audit report has been released, with the support of the House and Senate leadership, we are now going to pull the legislation that we have proposed, working on this for the past 2 years, which is creating a board of managers for intervention on the school board and move forward with that. We have to, as was stated, 1 out of every 10 students in Tennessee are educated in this one system. The budget is approximately $1.8 to $1.9 billion every year. We must address this, not only for the sake of Tennessee, but for the sake of Memphis, but most of all for the sake of the K through 12 students in our city. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brent Taylor. I'm state senator, and I just realized when Governor McNally was up here, he's been in the legislature almost 50 years, but it took me to show up to finally for him to holler calf rope and decide to retire. So I hope that was not anything I did. I think what this audit shows is that the Memphis Shelby County school system is about as organized as a $5 bin at the Walmart. And I would just like to highlight one of the things that captured my attention and why I got behind this effort to do this forensic audit, and then also to help pursue the legislation that will hopefully follow this. And by the way, the thing that got my attention was actually it straddles the audit period. As you heard from CLA, the audit period runs from 2022 to 2024. However, in 2018, the Memphis Shelby County School Board, they bought the Bear campus, which is on Jackson Avenue down in Memphis, and they paid $6 million for this building. They spent $33 million renovating it. And then in 2025, according to a newspaper article, they sold that building for $5 million. After buying it for $6 million, spending $33 million on it, and then selling it for $1 million less than they bought it for. Interestingly enough, they sold it to an organization called New Day, Tennessee, and the president of New Day, Tennessee is a former school board member. And it was sold as to New Day, and they were the only bidder on the property. It's these types of examples of why this audit was necessary. And the other thing that caught my attention from the audit was that the school system has a computer program that they manage a lot of contract payments and the monitoring and management of these contracts. And as staff members for MSCS came and went from the district, they never removed them from access to those computers. And much like the example you heard Speaker Sexton mention, one of the ways that that could have happened is that people that weren't even in the district any longer still had access to the computer program where they could have created a fake company, they could have put in a contract, they could have sent in invoices and then paid those invoices all from outside the district. And it'll be interesting to see if that actually happened. You know, I believe, I had dinner last night with Congressman Tim Burchett, who used to be in the state Senate. And I was talking to him about this, and I think it would be interesting if we shared the audit results when they're done with Congressman Burchett, who is chairman of the DOJ committee in Washington, just to see how many federal dollars come under the heading of waste, fraud, and abuse. And so I hope we will do that. Crime and education have been the two things that have held Memphis back. And I want to thank the people that are on this stage and others who have focused on Memphis to make Memphis matter. And the two things that have been holding us back are crime and education. And with Speaker Sexton's leadership and Lieutenant Governor McNally's leadership, President Trump sent the Memphis Safe Task Force to Memphis, literally have cut crime in half. The president was in Memphis just last week where he talked about how safe Memphis is. The other thing that's been holding us back has been education. This is the first step in solving our education issue in Memphis. And if we can solve crime and we can solve education in our community, there is no reason that Memphis can't be the next Southern IT city. We can become a first name city like Dallas, Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville. It needs to be Memphis next. This is the first step toward that. And I will end where I began, and that is that this audit again shows the level of mismanagement down in Memphis by MSCS, that had they been leading the Israelites out of Egypt instead of Moses, they would have ended up in a cornfield somewhere in Idaho. Thank you.
All right, we're going to have time for brief questions, but only about 5 minutes. I want to start with some of Memphis folks first. person on able to start the hearing.
Yeah, Imani Williams with Action News 5. So does this audit clear the way for a state oversight committee over that school board here in Memphis?
Yes, this was the first step. Representative White and I said last year when we passed our respective bills out of the House and Senate, they didn't match. We thought at that time, rather than force those two bills together, that we would wait until the audit results came in, and that's where we are today. So the next step will be to move that legislation. It'll wind up in conference committee where we will hammer out the differences between the House version and the Senate version. But I want to make one important thing, and those of you in the media have couched this as a state takeover of the school system. Keep in mind that this is not a state takeover, and I've heard the comparisons to the Achievement School District. This is not the Achievement School District. The Achievement School District was the state taking over the worst performing schools. This is completely different. This is the state authorizing a local intervention that will be made up of a board of managers who will be Memphians. They will be appointed by Speaker Sexton and Lieutenant Governor McNally and Governor Lee. They will be Memphians, and they will be intervening to try to turn our school system around. And I think that's an important distinction. It's a state authorizing a local intervention, not a state takeover. Martin, did you have anything to add?
Hi, Kayla Solomon and Fox 13. This might be a better question for Comptroller Howard. I know we're only about 25% through, the findings of this audit, but at the end, when all the results are in, what action could the Comptroller's office take if needed?
Thank you for the question. Again, the audit's made up of three parts: an internal controls review, which is complete, an IT and cybersecurity review, which is complete, and they're 25% way through the forensic audit part. What they have already found in just the 25% that they have completed is astounding. It's abusive to the taxpayer. It shows complete disregard for students and parents and taxpayers in Shelby County. And depending on what is found, whether it is waste or abuse or potentially fraud, if anything rises to the level that's prosecutable, we'll work with the proper officials, hopefully the United States Attorney in particular, in pursuing those matters.
Melissa,
Repeatedly, as just mentioned, 25% of the way through. Is it best practice for a state audit to provide results 25% through? And is it appropriate to sort of strategy to make legislative changes this session when there's 75% audit to go?
Well, I would say number one, if we had had the necessary cooperation from the Memphis-Shelby County school systems, we'd be a lot more than 25% through and perhaps would be done. Whether you're citing the level of cooperation or the antiquated IT system or the very dysfunctional record keeping, as I said, this has been a very challenging engagement for CLA, which is a nationwide, very experienced audit firm. I think it is very appropriate. You just take what we have seen so far. Let me reiterate. 44 deficiencies related to internal controls, 51 related to IT and cybersecurity, and 79 so far in 25% of the forensic audit. To me, that seems very actionable and probably overdue for action.
When you say lack of cooperation from the district, can you be a little more specific about what that looks like? Is it refusing to meet with auditors? Is it just records keeping issues? Can you outline a little what that means?
I think it's all of the above. I just think, especially I cited when they started their work in August, they were not met with open arms. They were met with trepidation and resistance. I think CLA was able to break through some of that. Again, conducted over 200 in-person interviews, having over 40 staff members on the ground at any given time. But I think it's all of the above, and that's why I stress, in order to be able to finish out this forensic part of the audit, it is going to be inherent on the Memphis-Shelby County school system to fully cooperate so that they can deliver an on-time product, for the final report?
Let me touch on that. It's an interesting question, because you surmise that 100% would lead you to a different result, which it's not going to. You're at 25%, you know what direction that's going. It is such a failure that at some point, do you need any more information to understand what needs to happen, right? How much more fraud, waste, and abuse? We know it's coming. We know it's going to increase. They haven't looked at all the contracts yet, and we have an understanding of what those look like and how abysmal they are, and record keeping and everything else without invoices and what that looks like. That doesn't even take into account the potential for nepotism and other things that's been going on to help family members and others that everybody in Shelby County has said it's been going on for decades. And so it gets to a point where you're like, we've seen enough. They're going to continue because we're going to continue because we need to continue if we're going to bring criminal charges if something comes up to that level. And that's why you complete the audit. And so that's the direction that we're moving in. But you also have to remember that they're still functioning today, and they're still probably doing the same practices today that they were doing 3 years ago. They might have changed a little bit because the auditor's in there and they don't want to get caught. So there is a systematic failure. It's continuing to happen. And it needs to change quickly, and that's what I hope that we get to do. We'll get to that capability. I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor's leadership on this, and the Senate and the House members, and then Chairman White and Senator Taylor, because there's no place for this. And so if we allow this to continue to go on for another year, this practice, there's kids who are not getting what they need. The school system is not functioning well. And there's more waste, fraud, and abuse that's going to continue to happen. So 25% is enough for me to make my decision on what we need to do. I was there before you had the audit, so I already knew what I was going to do when you talk to enough people in Shelby County. They can tell you exactly what's happening. And so that's where we are. Whether it's 25%, 100%, I think we need to move.
Last question.
Thanks, Mark. Christina, the thanks for having us. For auditors at CLA, being 25% of the way through with this audit, I'm curious if that is also 25% through the audit plan, what you were expecting to look for, or if some of these findings reflect things that you investigated more than you anticipated.
I would encourage everyone to read the report. It's 322 pages. Specifically, the forensic report is 196 pages. In reference to the percentage completion, it really is in reference to largely the contracts work that has to take place, but it's every section that we took care of, along with the percentage complete of each section of the scope of work, is addressed in the report.
And a quick follow-up on that, does the contract review in your process include review of subcontractors that might be attached to these contracts, or is that outside of the scope of this forensic audit?
All areas and all elements in which we took for the scope of work were provided by the comptroller, and they're all articulated in the report. We really want to encourage everyone to read it fully, because it will give you enough context as to what it is that we did, our process, the scope of work, as well as our methodology, and how we were able to come to our findings.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you. I'll this just in time. Thank you. To ask something at the end of the session.
See you later, Sam.
Can you not answer the question?
Okay, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Wow.
Wow. Thanks for sticking
Intense.
with us here on 24 Plus with Kevin McNamara.
I'm Yvonne Cooper. We're alongside our political analyst, Otis Sanford, that's joining us to talk about what we just heard. Otis, this was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Your first initial thoughts of what you heard?
It was a bombshell here. The report, even though it's only 25% complete and only covers the years 2022 through 2024, it releases information that is really detrimental and damaging to the school system. As Randy McNally, the Lieutenant Governor and the Senate Speaker, said, it's the worst he's ever seen in all of his years in state government, and that's a long time. And everyone who spoke, including the young lady from the auditing firm, they were clear that there is unbelievable waste, fraud, and abuse there. Now, let me say this now. The school district budget is $1.9 billion. And even though it was only 25% done, they identified 1.1 million in waste and abuse and 1.7 million in other problems that involve lack of compliance. So some defenders of the school system will say, well, when you have a $2 billion budget, that's not a lot, especially after the state spent $6 million to look into it. So I mean, but still, even if you try to defend it, it's a damaging report.
No, that's a great point. I think those percentages-wise, it's really not that significant. But the fact is, I think ultimately, as we got from that, they're expecting significantly more if they were to actually complete the final 75%. I mean, just to hear some of those things about how unwilling a lot of the contractors are to even give their info. I thought one of the more fascinating ones was, I believe it was Sexton saying that a significant portion of the contractors did not even have a physical address.
Yes,
right.
P.O. boxes.
They're all just P.O.
Right.
boxes.
Right.
You know, the tidbit about how they sold bought the building, renovated it, and then sold it at a loss to a former school board member. So many items in there that are significant. You got to wonder where the school district goes from here. I know we're going to have some kind of response that's possibly happening that we are going to right now.
I think they're ready. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Okay.
Parents in our communities. We recognize that there is a difference between the educational attainment and the back of house structure within the school system. We also recognize that this audit covered a period between 2022 and 2024. The Memphis-Shelby County Schools has unfortunately had a significant amount of transition in leadership. And we also recognize that we have a new superintendent and we have a new school board that is entirely separate from the majority of what was covered during that audit. We recognize that 25% of the audit has been completed, and the findings that potentially could be waste or fraud, nothing criminal has been found thus far, no fraud has been found thus far, represent less than a percentage of 1% of the budget of Memphis-Shelby County Schools. We recognize that Memphis-Shelby County Schools is still a level 5 TVOS and has exhibited growth consistently, and aligns with the majority of school districts across this state who have not seen such attention or promise or threat of intervention. Are there problems in the back of house? Yes. Their human resources probably needs to be completely redone. Their financial controls are antiquated systems that need to be redone. Obviously, they have some issues with the networking and IT. But that is completely separate from the experience that a child has in a classroom. And I think that's what we've lost sight of. We've lost sight of the real issue here, and that is making sure that our children are in an environment where they can learn and grow and where it's community driven. The Achievement School District was not successful for many reasons, but part of it was because there was not a lot of community collaboration. It was the state coming in and telling the community what they needed to do. And so what we're hoping moving forward is that this discussion can be collaborative, that it can be centered on boosting Memphis leadership, not replacing Memphis leadership. That it can be centered on providing the tools that the school system needs to be able to achieve, not just in the classroom, but also in their administrative buildings. And honestly, I think before we point to Shelby County Schools, Memphis-Shelby County Schools is such an example, we really have to ask, why did they receive clean audits for the past 3 years from the comptroller's office, right? We rely on those audits, and I think it was probably a failure in a vendor. But this is not just a Memphis problem, it's a whole system that potentially has led to the point that we're in now. So we take this information very seriously, and we think it's important that this information is used to correct a problem, not to punish a group of people. This should not be partisan, this should not be political. It should be deeply rooted in policy and partnership. And that is what I am aiming for. This is my 13th year in the General Assembly. I've been on education all 13 sessions, and constantly it's been one thing or another that our school systems have had to kind of adopt. And I hope that whatever happens here is something that is collaborative in nature and spirit with the elected officials from Memphis and Shelby County, the elected officials that represent the school system, and certainly I hope that we can take the narrative out of it and just focus on the numbers. That the notion that Memphis Shelby County Schools has not been cooperative is not something that we've heard in our experience with the conversations that we've had. And so I think it needs to be less adversarial and more about advancing our school system. And I will turn it over to Leader Karen Camper at this time.
Thanks, Leader. You know, there has not been one system in this state that has been through what Shelby County school system has been through. From when the Memphis City Schools gave up its charter to a merger, a demerger, an ASD, and legislation year after year after year after year pushed down on Memphis and Shelby County schools. Before the school system could even adapt to the recommended changes, there was something else that our children had to deal with, that our teachers had to deal with, that the administrivia had to deal with. So some of this we need to own in terms of the policy that's been pushed on this system. Every year, look back at the legislation. And it wasn't done collaboratively, which is what the leader just said. So if we really want to make change for the students, for the internal problems, maybe you can call it sloppy bookkeeping. If we want to change that, let's do it in a collaborative sense. Let's put teams together at the state level and the local level to really make the change that we say we want to see. Let's not rush to judgment on a 25% audit and pass some legislation that yet again, no other, not one other school system or LEA in this state has been through what we've been through. And to have a level of expectation without that consideration is problematic to me. We agree things need to be done. We stand ready to help formulate what this could be. We've always been poised and ready to assist and help. But when you think you know what a problem is and you don't consult with the people that's experiencing it and you come up with a solution that doesn't fix the problem, then you've really made it worse. So I think there's an ownership problem that the General Assembly needs to recognize in their role in what we're experiencing in Memphis Shelby County schools. This needs to be a collaborative effort. I don't think that the bill should pass. I think we should wait, because what I didn't hear enough of was what the actual auditor had to say. I saw some inflammatory words put out there. I heard a lot of rhetoric out there in some of the conversations that came from the stage. But we're looking for solutions for our system. We want our kids to do well, just like anybody else. We want the corrections to be made. But to have 3 clean audits, and then all of a sudden it's the worst in 45 years, I'm not believing that. Unless there was something missed before that they didn't have a chance to correct. And in their mind, they're doing what they believe is the right thing because we've had auditors come in and not say to us that this wasn't proper, that you need these internal controls, that you need A, B, and C, and D. So there was a failure somewhere else too that we need to understand and recognize. And work collaboratively with the local system to move the district forward, to make sure our children are getting what they need, to make sure that we continue to grow. Our system is doing great. You heard the leader. She gave the data. Yes, There's some internal controls that we need to put in place. Yes, there may be some risks, but we need to fix those things as we move forward. Questions?
Do you think it's even legal for the state to appoint a board that would take over or require the locally elected school board to report to it?
Well, I think,
And it would make the decisions basically.
Sam, I think the key is knowing what the final legislation will look like, right? In Chattanooga, they had an issue where they didn't want the school district to go into the ASD, and they ended up appointing a board of advisors of business members, community members, philanthropic members that really advise the school system. So I think it depends on what it looks like, right? We are acknowledging, everyone is very clear, there are some serious back of house issues where you need experts in accounting, human resources, and IT, right? So that could be a positive partnership. But the key is balancing displacing elected officials, taking away local authority, silencing the voice of voters. All of that has to be balanced. So we'll see what the final legislation looks like. There's a way to do it where you can actually create a true partnership, as opposed to saying, you're not doing this right, we're going to take away what you're doing and we're going to put something else in place. And historically, anytime that happens, there might be a short-term boost of, things moving forward, but the overarching feel in the community and lack of support doesn't lead to long-term sustained success.
Monty Williams with Action News 5. We heard previously where they said there wasn't any cooperation from MSCS with the auditors, but when I've talked to now Superintendent Roger Richmond, he said that he has been cooperative with the auditors. What have you all heard from people at MSCS dealing with this?
Well, I'll tell you, during the preliminary briefing that we had about a month ago, several weeks ago, the question was asked if they were being cooperative. And in the auditors replied back, I don't want to put words in their mouths, but they said yes, for the materials that they had, what they were able to give. Additionally, in conversations I've had with Dr. Richmond, he said yes. As a matter of fact, there was one of the
ABC 24 News, breaking news now.
What was highlighted to us is there's cooperation. There just aren't records to share.
Right.
And that is really talking about a more underlying issue.
Right.
It's not something that's deliberate at this point. It's something that needs to be corrected based on the fundamentals of the back of house at that district. And I also think it's an unfair correlation to say just because you have bad bookkeeping, that means that you're going to have bad teaching in a classroom. Those two things they don't have to be the same, right? You can have two different outcomes in that regard.
Box 13. Now, we've seen, or we heard them say this morning that this is only 25%, this is an interim audit. What do you all think about the timing of announcing 25% of an audit publicly, as well as the timing of while this legislation is still being discussed and hashed out?
I mean, I'll tell you, I think the key was that that's what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
So even when we had the briefing a few weeks ago, it was suggested we want to have something so that we can move forward. My colleagues will say it's because the kids can't wait. We'll say it's because we want a complete report so we can make the best possible decision. But that was the whole genesis behind the legislation. I mean, the audit was really to have justification for a potential legislation. So we were told at the briefing that there would be a preliminary report and then it would not be completed until probably the end of June. I mean, and again, that's literally what they're seeking. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but that clearly is the plan.
ABC 24, there's been a lot of discussion about the language of state takeover versus state oversight in this case, and obviously we heard representatives today talking about that. Can you give your stance about where you're hearing things stand right now, especially with the emphasis this morning on the Board of Management, managers really being localized, but of course we've heard from board members that they prefer to keep that leadership local. So what's your stance here?
I mean, there are two different versions of the bill right now, right? So you have a Senate version and a House version. How the Board of Managers is appointed varies, and so we'll kind of see what shakes out, right? I think one is state appointed, one is local appointed with state approval. So we'll kind of see what that looks like. I think from the statement of the majority leaders and the speakers, there is a move for a board of managers. We know that to be true. The question is, what will it look like? How will it be put together? What sort of collaborative relationship will it have with the school board? I think those are all the details that will really make the difference on whether or not this type of intervention can be successful in Memphis and Shelby County.
This takeover legislation is predicated on the fact that, Republican leadership believes that academics should be improved in the district. When you're thinking about potential amendments to propose to this legislation, how are you thinking about what academic improvements are reasonable and how to hold any appointed board or appointed set of people accountable to achieving those academic goals or some of the business and operations ones provided by today?
No, totally understand. I think that's the key distinction, right? There is a difference between what's happening with their back of house, their basic business practices, and what's happening in the classroom. And for me, I think a board of managers should focus on the most immediate problem, which is the back of house, right? Because you bring a level of expertise. Like, we want folks who are experts in human resources and networking and IT and finances and accounting. That's what you want. Because with an elected board, you're not necessarily, it's a people's board, just like we are the people's representatives. So you might not have that expertise. On the other hand, you look at the academic achievement, and I didn't say that we were where we want to be, because that is certainly not the case, but we are comparable to other districts across this state. And so really there has to be some balance. Is this type of heavy-handed intervention where you are also taking over exactly what happens in classrooms and schools with principals and teachers? Is that required? Is that necessary? Or can we do some sort of collaborative arrangement, I think, where, the school board and who was elected by the people, right? And the kids in those classrooms, their parents voted for them, can remain accountable to those parents while also cleaning up what we know are some significant deficiencies in the back of house.
A follow-up question. Several spoke today, including yourself, mentioned recent turnover at the school district. And I believe the audit report points to turnover being related to some of the weaknesses that are found. Is it appropriate for a new superintendent to be installed over the board, over the district at this point, or do you have any indication from briefings you've attended as to whether that would be against the recommendation of auditors or experts?
Well, I don't know if the auditors will delve into that part of it, but I do think obviously anything is on the table. My personal opinion, I think that Superintendent Richmond has, led at every angle of the district, from the classroom to the school to the back of house to the administration, and now as superintendent. He was just, I guess, made the permanent superintendent yesterday. So I'd really like to see what sort of collaborative action can occur with him still at the helm. Obviously, I think that it just depends on what the legislation looks like. I think anything is on the table. But again, he signed a contract, so that's something that we have to consider as well. But for me, I have faith in what he's at least described to me, the plans that he's put in place for the district, the collaborative spirit that he's had with different regions within the district and the principals, that I feel comfortable with what he's doing right now. Obviously, that is, it's anything is on the table. I anticipate from what my colleagues said.
We got
Thank you,
everyone. Somebody, that's his phone.
All right, if you are just now joining us here on ABC 24, we appreciate you being here with us. I'm Yvonne Cooper.
And I'm Kevin McNamara, and we're joined by our contributor, Otis Sanford. Otis, always appreciate you. I guess, what's your first takeaway from that Democratic press?
Well, the Democrats obviously are trying to set a collaborative tone here and trying to make the case that while there are some serious problems with the school district, they are not nearly as bad as how the Republicans portrayed it as the sky totally falling. And they also made the point that, with a $1.9 billion budget, this point I made earlier, that to identify, even though it's only 25% complete, the audit is, to say you have $1.1 million in waste and abuse and $1.7 million in other problems on a $2 billion budget is not as bad as what the Republicans are trying to say here. I think that was the message that the Democrats were trying to give here, and they also, again, were trying to strike a collaborative tone here.
And for those of you who are just joining us, from the Republican leadership, also from CLA, which is CliftonLarsonAllen, the auditors of the audit that we've been discussing now for several months, now that we have the results just a few moments ago, there are very, very big differences in how each group is describing the information that we just heard. So we heard from the state saying that there's possible widespread fraud, waste, and abuse, but the Democratic side goes back to saying, well, there are some problems, but they're chopping it down seemingly to just shoddy bookkeeping and things that just need to be addressed behind closed doors when it comes to HR management, things like that. Is this becoming too political in how we describe it?
Well, it's always been political. Just look at the dueling press conferences here. You had pretty much everybody, well, not pretty much, everybody who spoke at the original findings, they were Republican leaders, with the exception of the young lady from the auditing firm. And then you look at the response, and everybody there is a Democrat, African-American Democrat, I might add. And so, yes, it has come down to a political fight here, but who holds the bigger chips here? The Republicans hold the bigger chip. They are determined to pass legislation, even though Senator Brent Taylor says it's not a takeover, and he's trying to couch it as local people getting involved. Well, that's a distinction without a difference in my mind. It is a takeover. And again, I'm pretty tired of Senator Taylor coming up with these corn-pone examples to try to make his point. But yes, this is a political fight. This has always been a political fight, and I'm just going to say it, it's a racial fight as well.
Yeah, I do think it's important to note when the Republicans spoke, a lot of statements, very strong and declarative statements, but they did kind of stop short of saying there was outright fraud happening. Mm-hmm. They made sure to note, they weren't quite sure money was lost, that they did certainly reference shoddy bookkeeping, outdated computer systems. They didn't quite come out and say there's been fraud happening. Mm-hmm. And I think the question is, what is the distinction between poor management and systems that aren't working as intended and outright fraud and abuse that's happening within the school district, especially compared to perhaps other systems of similar size?
I agree, Kevin, but there was some comments made, and I think it was made by the comptroller, who said, maybe the U.S. attorney does need to look into this. And also there was a statement made, I think this was from either McNally or Sexton, that this was the biggest it was a result of apathy and carelessness, and there's no expectation that people are going to do things right within the school system. While, yes, they didn't come out and say that somebody is a criminal here, I think the implication here is that somebody's going to look into that. And one thing I'd like to hear, the person I want to hear from the most is Tony Williams, who at the time was the chief financial officer, who later became an interim superintendent. She was the chief financial officer during this period of time. Yes. I'd like to hear from her and see what she has to say about this. Yeah. But again, this is wildly political, and it's not going to get any less political.
All right. We're going to have much more on this coming up on our 24 Plus stream. We're going to get off the air here on ABC 24. We'll see you on 24 Plus right here.
Around with us here on 24 Plus News Live. We really appreciate it. Otis, we want to stay in this, in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this even in more depth. Mm-hmm. From an outsider looking in, from a journalist perspective, I worry about what parents are thinking listening to all of this, because in some parents' view, or in their point of view, maybe there was a lot of finger pointing back and forth. What does this actually mean for my kid that is in the school district?
Yeah.
How has this affected them? And what are people going to do to make sure that they are having a positive experience in class, that they are learning, that they are achieving? We didn't quite hear that from anyone today.
No, we didn't. What we heard from the Republicans was that there is a correlation between the systemic problems on the financial side and the problems in the classroom. That was implied, or actually pretty much stated. So when you ask about what are parents to think about this, well, it depends on the point of view of the parents here. There are a lot of parents who think that the school system is on the wrong track. They were upset about the firing of Marie Fagans, and so they might welcome a top-down look at, well, how are you spending the money? Are you spending the money properly? Are you spending the money on my kids in school, whether they're in elementary, middle, or high school? But then there are other parents who are saying that, well, the Republicans here, while there may be some problems here, they are making a mountain out of maybe a little bit more than a molehill, but they're making a big Mount Everest out of this, and it's not quite as bad, again, when you look at a nearly $2 billion budget. So I think you're going to get different perspectives depending on what parents you talk to.
Yeah, I think the Democrats are certainly trying to make that point as well during their pressers, noting that they had gotten a clean audit 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And so what exactly is being looked at here? What are the differences? Maybe if they had been told earlier that they had been failing in some of those tests, you might not have gotten to this point.
Well, and here's another point, Kevin and Yvonne. The school system merged, Memphis City Schools and Shelby County Schools merged back in July of 2013. And so we're talking about going on 13 years that the school system has been in existence as it is now. And of course, we've had the state involved in the school system. I think the Democrats pointed that out. What have you done over that period of time to ensure that things were done financially correct within the school system? And did you wait till now, when all of this fervor was over the firing of Marie Fagans and that sort of precipitated this latest takeover? Now you're looking at an audit that only covers 22 through 24. To make your case that we do need to take over the school system. I think people will question that and question the motive and motivation.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting too that, number one, we're here in general, but also how we got here.
Yeah.
And what really kind of spurred this conversation of more insight or to look into this. But I think it will be interesting to see if the auditors or if the audit can explain, is this something that we've been doing, district leaders, over time, just because this is the way that it's always been done? Any of the mishaps or the mistakes that's always been happening or whatever has gone on, is this the way we've always done it and that's the only way we knew how to do it? Or did we intend to do something wrong? How do you think that could shake up?
Well,
could the audit be able to prove or discount any of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the audit is going to get to that level of intent, for example. I mean, they're just looking at the facts here. But there were some statements made by the Republicans that, you know, because of a lot of turnover at the school system, because I think maybe the auditor said this, because of a lack of institutional knowledge at the school system, some of these things were allowed to happen. But in terms of the intent, I don't know that the audit is going to get into that. I did hear again someone calling for a possible federal, I even heard the word U.S. attorney looking into this. Well, a U.S. attorney looking into it, they're looking into it specifically to see if there were any criminal violations here, and then that would have to go to intent. What was your intent with that building that they mentioned, for example, that they spent $33 million to renovate after buying it for, I don't remember
it was five, they bought it for $6 million.
Bought it for $6,
spent
right.
$33 to renovate, and
then sold it for $5.
To someone who was on the school board.
Exactly. Well, that needs to be investigated.
Verified.
That would certainly be.
That might have been the most damning thing there to me. was, how did that happen? And what was the intent? And who was involved? Who made those decisions? I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and to your point, Yvonne, I mean, the Republicans were certainly trying to state outright that this has been a practice that's been ongoing for decades. I think literally, Cameron Sexton did literally say 4 decades, or Brent Taylor perhaps. And that's going to be, the question that they're trying to get to the bottom of. I mean, there's a lot of allegations being made. A forensic audit, ultimately, as you're saying, is not a criminal investigation. That is not, they're not looking for acts of criminality. So they can just kind of come out and sort of touch up to the line of saying that there's been fraud committed or there has been criminality here, but there's still just so much unknown. And where's the difference between politics and actually getting to the truth of the matter?
Well, that's true. But I will say, though, that by definition, though, a forensic audit sometimes is designed to see if there was any criminality going on. That's why they look at it in such depth. But you're right. I mean, they can't come out and conclude that somebody committed a crime because, again, you have to go to intent here. And was this sloppy? Was it benign neglect? There are a lot of explanations that could account for this. But again, if somebody wanted to look into it from a criminal standpoint and do that kind of investigation, that's where that would come into play.
Yeah. One thing I thought really piqued my ear as well is when they talked about how former staffers still had access to all of the computer systems and were theoretically able to create orders, fictitious companies, and stick their hand in the cookie jar, even when they were not employed by the district in any way. It seems certainly, and that was something the Democrats that you heard and then speak of, that the IT systems, the HR systems, they agree those definitely need to be revamped. And what is the connection between that and what happens in the classrooms, actually? Somewhat still to be said.
No question. And really, former employees should not have access to the databases and the computers and the operations. We wouldn't do that at ABC 24.
Correct.
Nobody would do it. I didn't do it at the Commercial Appeal when I worked there. If you out the door, you're out the door. You don't. We take away your cards. We take away your access to computers. That should never happen. And there was one other point that was made here that they gave an example of a person who was invoiced for 32 days of work in December when there are only 31 days in December and there are only 13 days of school in December. I mean, it's those kind of things, even though, again, I say the 1.1 million and 1.7 million in a $2 billion budget is not gigantic. It's things like this that would raise my eyebrow as to how does somebody get paid for 32 days in a 31-day month when there was only 13 days of work. That needs to be explained.
Agreed. We do have a reporter that's standing by, but Otis, I want to ask you one quick question before we get to Lauren. When it comes to perception is something that we talk about often within Memphis when it comes to crime. We had a scathing DOJ report not too long ago that we talked about it at length when that came out. But that was a mar and a scar on the city in a certain way. Will this report be as damaging if once we figure out everything that the auditor finds? Will that be as damaging to Memphis Shelby County Schools or the city?
Oh, I think it will, Yvonne, primarily because you have a lot of voices in addition to the Republicans in the legislature saying the same thing. There are a lot of loud voices here in Memphis that have been saying for months and years that the school system is dysfunctional, that they're not doing things the proper way. So yes, I think it's going to be very damaging, especially when the Republicans have control here. And once they get to having discussions about the legislation that they want to pass, there's going to be even more talk at the legislature about just how dysfunctional Memphis and Shelby County schools are and why it needs to have this other board to oversee what the elected school board is doing and even take back some of the decisions they made, which also raises the question. Yesterday, they named Roderick Richterman the permanent superintendent a day before the audit came out. I found that a little curious, but it was done unanimously. So what's the motivation behind that? Will that be able to stand if they If they pass this legislation and give this separate group the power to overturn decisions by the school board, that permanent superintendent position that Mr. Richmond has may not last.
Yeah, I think the timing of that certainly was very intentional.
Oh,
with this.
absolutely
Yeah,
it was.
Don't know on which end. So we are going to take you now to our reporter, Lauren Turman there, who's been on the scene all morning. Lauren, I guess what's just your first reaction from being there in the room?
Yes, Kevin, a lot of reaction here on both sides of this issue and a lot of information to break down. I heard you all discussing all of that with Otis there, really talking about the responses and really from both the Republican and Democratic sides here on what they think this means for the future of Memphis's schools and for all of the students, parents, and faculty in the area. So first, some of the most striking statements that you all discussed and we also took away from all of this really came from the comptroller, Jason Mumpower, and he said that this is one of the worst cases that he has seen in his career here so far. House Speaker Cameron Sexton also echoed that statement, as well as Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, all saying that this is really one of the worst examples and one of the worst audits that they have seen in quite some time here, and some of them since they have had tenure right here. And so I want to break down some of the information for you at this point and tell you some more of the statistics that have been discussed and some things that are really jarring and interesting, pointing to a lot of what may be going on in the school system on the Republican side of things, and then I'm going to take you through the Democratic response to all of that. So first, this, most importantly, is an interim forensic audit. As was mentioned today, 25% of this audit has been completed, 75% of it is left to do. However, Speaker Sexton did say that 25% is enough for him to see what he needs to see at this point. However, that was argued down by Democrats here. Also, some other important statistics here. $1.1 million so far was found to be in waste and abuse. $1.7 million was not in compliance with different policies here as well. They also threw out that nearly 175 deficiencies and operations have been found at this point, 51 of them being related to different IT systems in this district, as well as 79 observations that they have made so far. So those are just some numbers and statistics really pointing to some of the reasoning behind why they are saying that they are trying to turn around the Memphis-Shelby County Schools District, and they are also trying to make sure that they are finding any inconsistencies, any abuse, any mismanagement of different resources within the system to make sure that everybody is still going on the right foot and moving in a trajectory that more so aligns with what the Republicans here presented today. Now, taking you through some of the Democratic reaction to all of this, we heard from Senator Ramesh Akbari. We also heard from Representative Karen Camper. We saw Representative Antonio Parkinson and several other people in the background supporting much of their message here today, saying that they disagree with any statements that the Memphis-Shelby County School Board members and the superintendent, Dr. Roderick Richmond, has not been collaborative with CLA, the auditing firm that was brought in to make sure that all of this information was compiled correctly. They said that they disagree with those statements and that they hope that whatever comes out of this is something that is a collaborative effort. They emphasized that point a lot today, saying collaboration is key here. It is about the students, the faculty, the teachers in the district, and not so much about any of the other political aspects that you all had just talked about in your conversation, not politicizing this, but more so focusing on supporting families and supporting teachers within the school district as well. As you all mentioned, MSCS had outlined some of a plan that was going to be in response to whatever came out of the interim findings and eventually the full audit findings that will come out at a later point. Again, 25% of the interim audit is out right now, 75% is still left to be investigated here. But those are some of the primary points that were brought forward on both sides of the aisle. Another really important point is something that we have often covered here at ABC 24, which is the difference of the language between a state takeover and state oversight. Senator Brent Taylor and Representative Mark White touched on that quite significantly as they are sponsoring these bills, and they said that this is not a state takeover. They wanted to emphasize that directly, but rather they are intending to bring in board members that would consist of Memphians to really help further the school board along at this point and create an additional level of support for school board members and for the superintendent as well. However, Democrats really refuted that, saying that they believe that at this point this is a state takeover. They have been saying that consistently to us, but they also have said that they believe that that is something that will happen regardless of the intention. These board members, they believe, will be brought in. So that's really the first time that we're hearing some direct confirmation that this process seems to be moving forward with any state oversight that happens. And of course, we will continue to keep you updated. Again, a lot of numbers thrown out today, lots about the finances, the intention of the audit, which was to find any kind of mismanagement, misconduct, waste, abuse of different resources, and they went over that very extensively. However, to the point of some of the people who were in the room today and also the conversation that you all just had, we did hear a couple of points from the auditing firm that was here as well, but we should be hearing a lot more, especially in the coming months when it comes to the full audit investigation findings. And so as soon as we hear more on that, we will be sure to let you know. I will be here throughout the morning to give you some more information and details about this audit and what this means for MSCS, but for now, I'm going to send it back to you all in the studio.
An excellent recap from our Lauren Turnman. Lauren, thank you so much for being our eyes and ears on the ground there. You're doing an excellent job.
Absolutely.
All right. Otis, we're going to talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
Lauren gave us a lot of those numbers, and we're working on getting some graphics so that you can actually see the numbers that we're talking about. A lot of money, $1.1 million flagged for abuse and waste, another $1.7 million in transactions that may violate district policies.
Right.
What else do we have?
Yeah, we've got a lot of issues here. 44 internal deficiencies they found, 51 to their IT systems. The big thing, though, of course, as they talked about, that audit, only 25% complete. I mean, it's taken them 8-9 months just to do a quarter of it. One thing they certainly that was concerning, I think, at least to me, they talked about how hard it was to even get some of the contractors to give them their data. Folks didn't want to talk. That certainly raises some concerns. I know the Democrats tried to dispute that, but all around this situation, it's not a good look, to put it simply.
No, it's not at all. I mean, and as you said, they said some companies were refusing to provide the documents. Well, I think the school board can say, well, that wasn't us. That was the people we contracted with. I want to hear from the school board now.
Yes.
I think going forward, what do we do now?
What do we do now?
Yeah.
What are your responses, especially those who have been there a while? We have a lot of school board members who just got elected in 2024. So they can say, well, I wasn't around when that happened. But there were others who were there during this period of time, 2022 through 2024. I'd like to hear from them. I'd like to see what they have to say about it. Did you provide the level of oversight that you should have as an elected school board member? And again, I understand why the legislators, the Republican legislators, are trying to make the case that this is not a takeover, and saying, well, it's oversight and it's a committee that's going to help. Now, again, I think that's we're splitting hairs there, because my understanding, the legislation will give this group, this new group, appointed by the state, they're not appointed locally, give them the power to overturn decisions that are made by the school board. So yes, none of this is a good look, and as we said earlier, Yvonne, we are fighting a political fight here, and it's unfortunate that we are doing that, and really it's the schools, individual schools and students who are caught in the middle of all of this.
It is.
I mean, definitionally, to your point, they are being placed over the school board.
Absolutely. So I mean,
let's say they are being over it.
Yeah, let's not split hairs.
Would you say
on
that's
that.
just semantics?
It is total semantics here. And go ahead, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it, but don't try to dress it up as what is saying it's not what it really is.
Yeah, I mean, and we've got, a former superintendent running for county mayor right now. I would certainly be of the opinion, I want to know exactly what Dr. Fagans what her role in all of this was. This is exactly during parts of her tenure as well. She was here.
Well, it was actually on the tail end of her tenure. So I think that she
still there for it, though.
She can say, well, look, I don't have anything to do with this. Again, I would like to hear from Tony Williams. She was the chief financial officer who later became the interim superintendent. I'd like to hear from Joris Ray, who was the superintendent before he stepped away. So there are a lot of voices that I still want want to hear from. And you know, we have what the politicians are saying here. Republicans are saying this is the sky's falling. Democrats are saying it's not that bad. It's maybe 1% of a gigantic budget. But the people who were on the ground floor of this, meaning the school systems, executives and the school board, they are going to have to respond to this too.
Yeah, and that members of the state mentioned that there were more than 220 interviews that were done.
Right.
During this part of this audit. I wonder who they spoke to.
Well, I would too. And if you had 220 interviews, you can't really turn around and say that you didn't get much cooperation either. Maybe they didn't get a lot of cooperation from some of the vendors and companies that got the contracts. But if you had 220 interviews with people supposedly within the school system, I mean, we have a lot of people working for the school system, but if you had 220 people giving interviews, you got a level of cooperation there.
Yeah, and I think the ultimate question here is that we kind of get around is like, how is this impacting the kids and the students and the classroom, right? This is, if you've got financial mismanagement to the level certainly that the Republicans are alleging, they were trying to draw that connection to reading performance, saying, 25% students failing to read at proper grade levels.
Right.
Making the case for the state takeover. What is that real connection, I think?
That's right.
That's the most important thing, at least to me.
That's right.
And you just want the kids to do as best as they can do. And
that's a difference of opinion here. You had Cameron Sexton says there is a correlation between poor financial operations and poor performance in the schools. You had Senator Ramesh Akbari saying those are two different things. Poor bookkeeping does not translate into a kid getting an F in classes. So that's just a matter of opinion. We're never going to resolve that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, especially if somehow they can tie the money, the 1.7, the 1.1 million that they're talking about, that could be flagged for abuse or waste, and say, well, that could have been money that you use for resources for the kids in school. Now, if they're able to make that connection, maybe that's something that people can see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about double payments for vacations for some folks, those executive coaching contracts that seemed really shady as far as who was getting the money and for what services they're being provided. I mean, there's still a lot to get into. I think, the young woman from the law firm emphasizing to read the report, which we don't have the chance yet to do, 300 plus pages. We'll try and dig into that. Seems like there's a lot that we still need to learn here about what exactly they found. There's a lot of numbers, not a lot of specifics other than a couple of those anecdotes that they share.
And remember, all of this is happening with the looming election coming up. We have a primary election where for the first time, people running for the school board are going to be in a primary because the state made it a partisan primary for school boards. So that's happening in just a little over a month from now. May the 5th is the primary. So candidates who are running for school board, they're going to have to address this as they go out to campaign, including some incumbents who may be on the ballot. And of course, you have Superintendent Richmond, who, as I said a minute ago, he was just named the permanent superintendent yesterday. What does he have to say about all of this? He's been in the school system for years, in a lot of different positions, including at the central office. So what do you know about all of this? I mean, there's just so much to get into that people are going to have to address as we dig into this audit. Again, 25% of it only done. We got 75% more to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be the number one priority of Dr. Richmond here, in at least certainly. I mean, it's way beyond in terms of the actual managing of the district and the schools and getting good educational outcomes. This is the kind of thing that really dominates the entire structure now.
No question that.
And will continue to do so for however long. I mean,
no question.
Yeah. And we still have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
And not just, again, to your point, Otis, we definitely have to speak with the school board and see what's going on. Members of the school board, like you mentioned, that have been there for a while.
Yeah.
But I actually want to go back to the state.
Yeah.
The Democrats did have an interesting point. Why did they pass 3 state audits? I thought that was a very big point that they brought up.
Yeah.
If this was going on, if you say this has been going on for years,
For years.
for decades.
Yeah, decades.
So then why didn't anybody catch this?
Absolutely.
Why didn't anybody catch this?
That's
Why
right.
didn't the school district catch this?
Right.
Why didn't the state catch this?
That's right. We have a Department of Education in the state. They oversee education in a statewide. They obviously have connections and insight and oversight of the education here in Shelby County. Where have you been? There's been a lot of turnover there as well. A lot of people are going to have to answer for why was that the case? Why did you get clean audits all of those times? And now that you want to take over the school system, but I'm still saying take over, whether they want me to say it or not, I think that people are going to have to answer, why didn't you find this sooner? Why did it take now that you want to pass this legislation and you're angry with the lack of functionality at the school system to make your reason for taking it over?
Yeah, I believe they said in one of the press conferences with the Republicans that this is a systematic failure, but I think you cannot absolutely resolve the state of their role in someone allowed this.
Absolutely.
Someone allowed this to continue.
And you made a great point, I thought, Otis, which is that this forensic audit cost $6 million.
Right.
So to this point, they've actually spent more money on this than the fraud that they've actually found.
Oh, no
to
question.
this point.
No question.
Which kind of begs the question of what exactly is the goal here? Is this a solution in search of a problem?
Well, right. But, you'd still have 75% more to go. So they may make the case that we're going to find a whole lot more, and that $6 million is going to be money well spent in the end. We'll see about that. But that is a point. You spend $6 million and you find $2 million in fraud, a little over $2. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
There's just so much to get into with this. I mean, we could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Some of the quotes coming out, especially from McNally, I thought were really interesting. He was really going for the good ones. He said, I wrote some of them down. Quote, one of the worst audit reports he's ever seen.
Right.
Like people don't care about the rules, no commitment to accountability, doing the right thing. I mean, they were really trying to lay it on in terms of the MSCS's failures. Certainly, some of that, absolutely, you've got to say is true.
Yeah.
And it's really disheartening to hear when you talk about this is the largest school district in the state,
right.
One of the largest in the entire country,
right.
And you've got that has struggled to get the outcomes that it's looking for its kids. They've got a point if they're saying we got to do something about this here.
Well, no question. And as was stated, 1 out of every 10 student in the state is educated in Memphis Shelby County schools. To your point about Randy McNally, he didn't say this specifically in the press conference, but he told reporters earlier this week, and this is a direct quote, there are some parts in the audit that I think deserve a lot of further attention as to whether they might involve criminal activity. So again, while they didn't hammer on the criminal aspects of this, McNally at least is implying that there could be some criminal activity here. And again, I think it was Jason Mumpower, the comptroller, was saying that maybe the U.S. Attorney needs to look into this. I think they are raising the specter.
They're implying it.
They're implying that there may be some criminal activity here. Somebody else needs to look into that. That's not what the legislature should do, and probably not what the comptroller should do, because again, as I said a minute ago, it has to go to intent, and they can't show intent here. They just show what happened with the numbers.
Yeah. And we know accountability is a big thing.
Yeah.
But do you think if they can prove that criminal activity took place purposefully, willingly, knowingly, that some people could go down for this?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean, even if it's $2 million out of a $2 billion budget, if that $2 million was spent or done fraudulently and knowingly fraudulently, yes, we could have some people answering from a criminal standpoint here. I've been around here a long time, and I've seen governments, whether it's Shelby County government, whether it's Memphis City government, where you got a lot of contracts being given, sometimes given to your friends, sometimes given and you get a kickback from it. And I'm certainly not implying that happened here. but it has happened with local governments in the past.
We certainly
And
have.
so it takes investigators to look into that to see if there's something there. And, you know, if it is, then we could likely see some prosecutions here. I'm not saying that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think one place where they'll start, that stat that kind of caught my eye, we talked about it earlier, I got the number, 6% of the vendors that they got contracted out with have no street address.
Right.
Just a P.O. box,
Right.
which is interesting if you're going to be providing any kind of real educational services or whatever else that they're being contracted out for. You expect them to have some kind of physical property to have and be worth any money. So that's the closest I think as they came to really implying like something criminal is going on.
Yeah,
right here.
and those folks need to be identified. And who were that? Who were they? And again, I go back to that building that they talked about.
Yeah.
You know, that needs to be looked into a little further to say who was involved in that. Did you get a sweetheart deal here? Was some of the money that went to this, did it go another direction? I mean, there's a lot of things that has to be responded to. And with that one incident alone, with that building that they spent $33 million to renovate, spent $6 million to buy it, and then sold it for $5 million, that makes no sense.
And what were the renovations that were done?
Exactly.
You know, did someone get a slice of that?
Exactly, exactly. Or were they actually done at all?
Yeah.
Maybe it's on record that it was done, $33 million, and maybe I don't know.
It doesn't seem like they could have been worth much as renovations if the building only sold for $5 million just immediately after.
Exactly.
We got to look into that and verify.
We got to
that.
look into
that. We got to verify.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, just one of the other things, I can't remember who said it, but just at no level is there an expectation that things are done right.
Right.
That was kind of eye-opening to me as well.
Cameron Sexton.
Cameron Sexton, Just that it was just kind of understood. It's just there's this black box. You kind of reach in. Maybe folks are skimming. Folks are just getting money where they can. There's no accountability, major lack of accountability.
Right.
Culture of apathy and carelessness.
Absolutely.
And those are just not words that you want to hear associated with your school
not
district.
at all.
And he also mentioned, excuse me, he also mentioned, bad record keeping with regard to travel. And I think he even mentioned vacations.
Yeah.
Now, again, in the past, we have, journalists have looked into agencies doing business with the state. I'm referring specifically to several years ago, we had a big scandal involving the state-funded daycares, where the agency that was providing doing the oversight for state-funded daycare, they were using state money for vacations and lavish trips and spending on personal items. Again, I'm not saying any of that happened here. I want to be clear. But when you raise the question about the lack of oversight over purchases, travel, vacations, you're implying that you're spending money on personal items and not for the benefit of the school system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And going back to the comments that you made about Cameron Sexton's comments.
Yeah.
Just in general, were all of those fair to put on the school district? Just trying to be balanced in the reporting. Is it fair to say that, and I'm paraphrasing his words, of just, we didn't expect. We expected this to be this way, or we didn't expect things to go. Is that fair to put on the school district from your legislators?
I think it was a little condescending myself. You're saying that, well, you're either incompetent or you're incapable of running a system this size, and so I don't expect any more out of you. That's condescending here, and frankly, it could border on a little racist here, because we know the school system is overwhelmingly majority African American. The school board is overwhelmingly African American. The school leaders, and so to say that. You're making an inference here that I just don't think is fair, and you could have left that unsaid as you give the facts. You know, Joe Friday, and I'm going back, I'm showing my age here, Dragnet used to always say, just the facts, ma'am. Just give me the facts.
Yeah.
And if they had just stuck with the facts and talked about what the audit, that's what the lady from the auditing firm did. She didn't make any conclusions. Yeah. She didn't say anybody was grossly incompetent and I didn't expect any more from them. She just gave the facts. And if Cameron Sexton wanted to do that, if Randy McNally wanted to do that, if Brent Taylor and Mark White wanted to do that, then that's fine. But then to go even further and impugn somebody's ability to do a job that they were appointed or elected to do, I do think it was unfair.
Yeah, they were certainly taking their opportunities to take
shots,
their political
yeah.
shots
Oh, no
when
question
they could in the
No
midst of
question
all
about
this stuff. I mean, some of it certainly deserved, but...
Well, yeah. I mean,
So,
again, as
you know,
we
taking
said
the
at the
free
very
shot.
beginning, you know, this is a scathing report.
Right,
It is.
right.
And people are going to have to respond to this. School board is going to have to respond. The superintendent is going to have to respond. The former chief financial officer is going to have to respond. Everybody has to come out and say what happened here, including people who are no longer with the district. Mm-hmm. But again, give the facts and leave that personal digs, leave those aside.
Yeah. The rhetoric that we use going forward to speak about this will matter.
Exactly.
It will matter.
It will.
Yeah. And I think the question is, there's going to be a lot of fallout from this.
Yes.
What does this look like going forward? You know, we've got a more of a laid out plan for that state takeover, or they don't want to use that term, board of managers from Memphians.
Right.
You know, who are those people going to be?
Right.
I know they had referenced some, Ramesh Akbari had referenced the takeover, or not, the board that had been put in Chattanooga, local business people, philanthropists like that. Is that going to be that kind of situation here in Memphis? What will those people look like? And are they going to be only accountable to, you know, governor and
Right, they're
governor?
accountable to the
Right.
people who appointed them.
Right.
And the implication was that we're going to get a lot of people who have financial backgrounds, who know how to deal with financial operations of this size, because there's very little in this county that is this size. But that's what they are portraying this as, is getting some experts in finances that can get in there and do the right thing. But yeah, they'll be beholden to the people who appointed them, because they will have oversight of the school board and even countermand some of the decisions that the school board makes, including the selection of a superintendent.
Yeah, and are those decisions going to be made from a finance perspective or an education perspective?
I think it's going to be made from both and an operational perspective. I think they're going to have well, that'll be discussed when they get to the debate on the House and Senate floor in Nashville. But it's my expectation that they will have oversight over the entire operation, especially how the school board manages things. They're going to be looking over their shoulders on everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when it comes to this takeover, this operational board, whatever we call it, let's go ahead and think about the pros and the cons of that happening, because it's seemingly that is coming along down the pipeline, possibly.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the pros and the cons of having a board like that in Memphis and changing things within the district?
Well, that's a very good question. As I look at it, the pros would be you do have people who are experts in finances, people who have been around Shelby County, because they said everybody is going to be from Shelby County. And people who have experiences dealing with maybe not a $2 billion budget, but certainly they have experience in how to deal with accounting and finances. That could be helpful, because as well-meaning as some school board members have, some of them just don't have the expertise to deal with the finances. And so that could be helpful if they are willing to get in and work with the school leaders, work with the school board, be transparent, let the public know what's going on, as they also let the people at state government know what's going on. That could be helpful. The con could be that the people who are appointed are just favorites of the governor and the speaker and the lieutenant governor, and they just run roughshod over everything. They don't cooperate that much with the school board. They countermand everything that they want to do and create a little bit of chaos. That could be a problem there. I'm hoping that won't happen. I'm hoping that have more collaboration than confrontation with this new group.
Yeah, that was certainly what Ramesh Akbari was saying in her press conference, really emphasizing the need for collaboration, policy, partnership. That was her trio of words. They don't. They're willing. They certainly acknowledge the problems with the school district, saying that lots of transitions in leadership. There's been a lot of uncertainty, lack of organization, problems with all sorts of systems, which they acknowledge, and they're willing to make some changes, but they just don't want it to be done by decree from Nashville, without a care of what students need, teachers need, parents need, and the community need.
Absolutely. And when you talk about that, there has been tremendous turnover in the school system. I mean, you go back again to when it was merged in 2013. At that time, the superintendent was Kreiner Cash, and then he left. Then you had Dorsey Hobson, who came in. And then after he left, you had George Ray. And then after George Ray left, you had an interim, and you had Tony Williams. And then you had Marie Fagans. And then things that really blew up with her. And then you had interim Roger Richmond. Now you have a permanent Roger Richmond, who is one day permanent. And so look at all the turnover there. Look at the turnover in the financial side of the school district. You've had that as well. And somebody, I think it was the auditor, who said correctly, there's not enough institutional knowledge there. And you have to have institutional knowledge. We all know that. You really need, if you're in journalism, you have to have institutional knowledge in the community to know how to do the job. And so if you don't have that kind of knowledge going on in a $2 billion operation like Memphis and Shelby County Schools, you're going to have some problems. And I hope all of that is taken into account here.
Agreed. We're getting close to time. We're at the thick of it. Otis, I did want to ask you, knowing what you know now, hearing what you've heard today, your experience in Memphis as a Memphian, et cetera, what is your hope now for the school district moving forward?
Well, I hope that the school district will agree that to address some of the problems that are clearly laid out, even in a 25% audit. I hope that they commit themselves to dealing with that and not be too defensive about there's nothing to see here, because there's clearly something to see here. Whether it is as big as the Republicans want to make it, there's something to see here. And I really do hope that the people in the school system, for the benefit of everybody who has school children in the schools and those who don't, but we pay taxes that go to the school system, everybody should want to have a good, as good of a school system as you can possibly have. And that's my hope, that some good will come out of this that will help to improve the school system. And I hope that we don't keep having a political fight that is Democrat versus Republican, black versus white, suburban versus city, Nashville versus Memphis. All of those fights are non-productive here. And so I would really hope, as someone who has, you're right, I've been around here a long time. Yes, I've seen a lot of discord, but I've also seen some collaboration too. And I would hope that this would be on the collaboration side.
Yeah. I thought Karen Camper made that point as well, as much like all the things that have been put on the district over the years, all the challenges they've been dealing with. And they're just looking for like an opportunity to grow and have this thing kind of work out, because it's about the kids and the education that we all want them to get.
Absolutely.
No question about it. And I think for the most part, we have political leaders who are just trying to do the best they can do on both sides. But when you look at leaders like Karen Camper and Ramesh Akbari, they were level-headed in what they were saying. They did not make any outlandish comments. They did not attack people from a personal standpoint. They certainly didn't come up with a lot of corn-pone comments, such as if this school system was leading people out of the land of Egypt, they'd wound up in a cornfield in Iowa. We don't need that kind of stuff. We need sensible discussion, reasoned, rational collaboration here to make the school system better, that will make our students be the best that they can be, because we depend on that.
Absolutely. Our political analyst Otis Samford joining us today. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
Always
Thank
a
you both.
riveting discussion.
Sensible discussion from you always.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.